Good evening, my Roslins and Rosikins. Mother is back, and I am starting a new series called Rasputia. Is that you? This series is going to touch on a lot of the dysfunction within the unambiguous Black community, and we are going to dive deeper into, I feel like, the case study of Norbit and Rasputia's relationship. But first, this one is focused on Rasputia. I may focus on Norbit in the future, I may not. We'll see. But as a woman, I'm going to be touching on Rasputia. Now, some might ask, Mother, why are you touching on Rasputia? Well, it's because a lot of the traits that Rasputia has, I see within the Black community. And I don't want us brown skinned, dark skinned Zalcools copying or living this type of a lifestyle or traits or habits or mindset that Respucia has because, like I said, brown skinned, dark skinned Zalcools, we are not the tokens of the Black community, as and we will not continue to be, and therefore to differentiate ourselves even more, we have to change our mindset, change the way we move. And I'm going to touch on certain topics that Respucia displays that might fit more of an ambiguous Black woman toxic mindset versus that of a brown cis dark skin exotical toxic mindset. And for me personally, Rosalind's, I don't want you to have any of this mindset. And any unambiguous Black women that might be listening, if you see yourselves in this series, please change. And any exoticals that see this, if you see yourselves in this series, please change. My Rosalind's and my fellow lighter skin exotical sisters, we cannot perpetrate this type of behavior. It is beneath us as women in general, and we are too pretty for this shit, respectfully. So let's get into it. So throughout the movie, we see that Respucia is a very unfathomable, unfavorable, and might I add, ugly and vile person towards Norbit. This video is going to focus on their marriage. So, don't approach marriage like Respucia, okay? So we see her being vile towards her husband Norbit in the most disgusting ways. She's doing infidelity, she has a nasty attitude, and she neglects their relationship emotionally and whatnot. And I want to touch on these different aspects so that if you are married and you're listening to this, that you don't do these things with your husband. So Rasputia married Norbit, who technically would count as someone beneath her in regards to the resources she had before marrying him, and how she has access to more opportunities to further her life than Norbit did, who was, the backstory, an orphan, shy, timid, and who just let life happen to him more than him taking and having ambition to create the life that he wanted. And also feeling unloved and unvalued. Norbert went through a lot, so I can't discredit his trauma that led to him being with a woman like Respucia. But what I will say is that it was a hypogamous marriage, I believe, technically, with Respucia and Norbert, because she did, in fact, marry down as far as like social hierarchy goes with the way that they both had their lives um, already determined before meeting and even during them growing up together. So, what I want to say is that I noticed that a lot of women will marry men beneath them hypogamously, right? Then resent these same men and act vile towards these same men that they marry. And Respucia is the perfect example of this. If you are someone who resents your husband, divorce. Just divorce or work through it in marriage counseling. I don't know what to tell you, but you told him yes. And some of you Respucias out there actually proposed to your husband that you now resent because he is not on your level. And so my thing is this: if you know a man is not on your level, why say yes? because you want validation, because you want to say you have a man, because you've never been desired towards any other man before. So the second that any man goes along with the program that he's in a relationship with you, now you want to lock it down. You want to say yes. You want to be his wife. What I will say is that a lot of marriages that happen in Blackistan don't have to happen. And I'm going to be focused on marriage in this video, not just hookups and relationships, because again, they're married in the movie. And from my own personal experience, I've seen like this type of dynamic where the wife is like kind of vile towards the husband. Even in situations where the husband even elevated her, a nasty ass attitude the wife has towards her unambiguous black husband, right? Or even some Razikins. And Razikins are um, exotic black men or brown slash dark skin exotic men, exotic coals, right? So the Rosalind's counterpart. So yeah, I've seen this. I've seen this where they act so vile towards the man. Like nothing's ever good enough that that man does for them, but you already knew this. You already knew before you got married to this man that he did not have all the resources in the world, maybe not all the good looks in the world. And if you had sex before marriage, maybe he wasn't laying it down the way you would like. That you knew that, but you still said yes because you felt that this would be your best shot in life at a fairy tale, love story. And when it doesn't work out that way, everything goes to hell. I think it's very, very stupid and neglectful and treacherous of you to do this to yourself as a woman, to marry a man that you already know is already on a thin fucking list. He's already working your patience. Why even be with this man then? And then one can also argue maybe religion has something to do with it. But what I will say, in the story of Norbit and Rasputia's religion didn't really have anything to do with it. They got married in the church, congratulations. And, they seem to be Bible-going people. But even Rasputia, she couldn't put up the act that she was this great Christian wife. She knew that what she prioritized was her own selfish needs above her marriage. So she didn't give a fuck who thought what. She just went around town doing what she did because she had also social status, though it might be, infamous social status, but still social status and money and property along with her family business. Another thing that I want to add is that Rasputia was very masculine and vile towards Norbert, who was faithful and loved her to the best of his ability. Norbert was weaker than Rasputia as well. So I hear a lot of this talk that, oh my God, men need to be leaders. They need to be leaders. They need to be stronger. They need to have more money than us. They need to do all this stuff in the black community, right? From ambiguous black women, right? But they will still settle, still give their bodies to, still marry, still birth the children of unworthy men. I don't know if it's because he's an unambiguous black man or it's because you feel like, again, that was your best option. Either way you put it, it leaves you as a shell of a person and of the person that you are and makes you even viler towards people who and your husband who is not up to par, but makes you vile towards everybody, even your children, because you're resenting the man that you said yes to. You're resenting your marriage. You're resenting your commitment. And it doesn't escape me that a lot of times too, that the same Rasputia masculinity that they carry, that any woman carries in the situation, but specifically in the black community, they are this way towards men who are weak, yes, but also at times men who actually care about them to the best of their ability. One of the biggest mistakes that you can make as a woman is stoning a man for the capacity that he has of loving you. It just means that you're with a man whose capacity is smaller than what you deserve, but it doesn't take away from him. I believe, giving his best effort and loving you. Now, Mother believes that love from a man is provision and protection consistently. They don't play about you. They're possessive. They're dominant. They want to guide the marriage, your union, your relationship in a great way and in a purposeful way. But then again, I'm a beauty destined woman. I'm a divine feminine woman. So again, Respucia is none of that. And a lot of women are none of that either. So I'm going to say that for the average woman that I'm talking about in this video who does not have a beauty destined calling, you're going to fall for it. You're going to fall for it heavy. The fact that you allow your resentment to fester, to destroy your femininity within your marriage to a man that's unworthy of you, and not to, let's say, cut ties, divorce, get, counseling with your husband, etc. Because you're stuck in an enraged victim and resentful mindset. You're putting all the blame on him and not taking accountability that you are the one who said yes to this marriage. Again, you know how women say, well, he showed no signs. He just started acting like this out of nowhere. Baby, girl, there are always signs with men, with women, with children, with anything that has breath. There are patterns you seek and see, and there is a thing called denial. A lot of women, especially who have been churchanized, I will say this, add this layer though too, to relate more to the unambiguous Black women experience, that have been churchanized, that feel that religion will fix everything. God will just fix everything, but you're not doing your part within that of the fixing, right? It takes two. So my thing is that when it comes down to the marriage conversation and what Respucia is literally highlighting, is that a lot of women are in denial and want a biblical or fairy tale marriage at the expense of their own goddamn common sense. And so, because they push away their intuition, they push away their self esteem, they feel that this is their moment to shine. This is what will give them worth, is to be a wife, even though you're being a wife to a man who's unworthy of you, and then you become resentful, masculine, bitter, etc. Or it just amplifies that you're already a shitty person to begin with, and you become even more shittier if you weren't before the marriage. Is that, yeah, yeah, it's not worth it. It's not worth your mental health. It's not worth your emotional instability, your emotional enragedness. It's not worth any of that. You need to make a decision, okay, in regards to what you want in a husband. If that man doesn't check off that list, you need to let him go. Might I add also that finances is another thing that deters a lot of marriages in general, and especially with the hypogamous conversation where a lot of unambiguous Black women will marry men who are not on their level, again, for the sake of some emotional support. I mean, you're draining your bank account, you're stressing out, you're turning vile, you're taking the lead role that you never wanted to begin with because it goes against everything you've ever been brainwashed and or taught to believe about a woman's place, right? You're doing all these things for the image, for the title of wife, but your husband isn't husbanding. I don't have time. So here's another thing. Respucia cheated on Norbit. So a lot of women complain about men cheating. They do. Not every man. I'm not going to say that lie. But a majority of them do because they're with women that they settled for and that they clearly don't want or that they are using. And so Respucia cheated on Orbit. A lot of women, again, will say that men cheat, etc. But some of y'all women be cheating on your husbands as well with other women and men, emotionally or physically on top of that. And so I find it funny, or cheating on your husband with your love and validation from food versus your love and validation from a relationship you have with a partner that values you the same way you do him. Let's talk about it. And this goes into my place with, um, well, I'm going to get to that another topic. Well, I'm going to get there later. But my thing is, let's talk about it. So Rasputia cheats on Norbit. Women in the unambiguous Black community complain about cheaters, but you be cheating on your whole entire relationship with your inability to be accountable with your diet, with your emotions, and with sometimes your friendships that cross boundaries into your marriage. A lot of times I see women who like to say what the man's always doing in the relationship, but does not take accountability for what they do in the relationship or don't do in the relationship. You know, these same women will let themselves go, gain weight, look a hot mess, then bitch about someone, catching their husband's eye. Well, Barbara, Rasputia, if you actually valued yourself, maybe your husband would value you too. And I will say this, if someone's going to cheat, they're going to cheat. I'm not saying that the sole culprit and the one thing that will stop a man from cheating is being fine as fuck. But I'm just saying, be fine for you. That way, if you have a low down dirty dog in the relationship, you can bounce. Also, Respucia, again, we're not gonna get off this topic. Some of y'all be cheating. Y'all be telling your homegirls all your business that has to do with your marriage. Just literally compromising all confidential, sacred information between you and your spouse, right? Some of y'all be literally in love with your female friends. Because I talked about that on my channel, how there be closet lesbian women. Let's talk about it. And y'all get married, just like men can be beards and have beards, etc., etc. So can women. Your husband's basically just a fucking prop at this point because you're actually emotionally connected and emotionally invested in other women, you know? And then some of you blatantly cheat yourselves. You walk over your husband, feel like he ain't got nothing to offer you, fuck him, okay. And you do what you want to do on the side, have your little side piece. So my thing is just that if you're a woman who does this stuff in regards to your marriage with infidelity in any capacity, stop it. Seek help. Go to therapy with your spouse or yourself, or just leave. You know? Another thing I want to talk about is Rasputia exalted her brothers over Norbit. I realized that Rasputia was really saying, my brothers are above my husband. My family is above my husband, aka, right? When it comes down to marriage, I'm the type of woman who believes that we ride or die. Preferably, I'm not dying, but we definitely riding. I believe that when you are married, that is your number one person. Nobody is above your spouse. And so if you have the idea that you're going to belittle the man that you're with and also say fuck you to him, right? And put your family above him, expect your marriage to be shitty. Expect you to be unhappy in your marriage. Because what goes around comes around. Because when he tries to do the same shit, you're going to be bitching and moaning, but you did it first. And also, you can put friends over your spouse, over your husband. My thing is Respucia, did Norbert really even have a chance to be the man that she needed him to be if she's already have male influences and or other priorities above him regardless before he was her husband and after? So my thing is like when it comes down to the hierarchy, I believe it's God, your spouse, and then the kids if you have them. For mother, it will always be God and my spouse, future spouse one day, right? And so it will never be, oh my God, my mom was over my husband. Fuck that. My brother, my sister's over my husband. Yeah, fuck that. My kids are over my husband. Fuck that. Hashtag child free. But my point is, no, 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 no. I vowed before God, right, that this is my person, this is my soulmate, this is the love of my life, right? To death do us part. I mean that shit when I say it. And so some of y'all have your little hierarchies and the way you view marriage and who's a priority fucked up. No, the kids should not be a priority over your marriage. God and your spouse come first, then the kids, because mommy and daddy got to be good for the kids to be good. Y'all be blowing me sometimes with the way y'all think. And then when your spouse does it to you, when your husband does it to you, where he values something over you, it's, oh my God, like I do all this stuff for him. And like, it's like, lady, calm down. You're literally doing it all the time when you put everything else over your husband. But the second he does it, now it's the end of the world. World War Three. Actually, World War Four in this bitch because I feel like we're in World War Three. But yeah, it's just like, ma'am, calm down, pipe down. Examine yourself, examine your marriage, have a conversation with your husband about who do you want to be the sole focus, what is the priority, what is the hierarchy of valuing within that union. And this is before the kids. I'm gonna tell you, don't have these conversations and examine yourself with, well, if you have kids already, still examine yourself and work on your marriage the way you see fit. But my God, if you ain't got no kids yet with this man, y'all need to have these conversations. Matter of fact, if you think he's beneath you and it's hypogamous, you shouldn't have been married to him anyway, let alone even, you know, doing the do with him. So yeah. Another thing I noticed is Rasputia glorified food over her marriage. And if you look at Rasputia, you can see that she's a gluttonous bitch. She's gluttonous as hell. Very vile person, very gluttonous. And one thing I want to say is that because Rasputia is very gluttonous, it's obvious that she didn't respect Norbit, but she definitely respected her 16 piece from KFC. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just the fact that these same women who bitch and moan about their marriage, who do everything wrong in their marriage, didn't say that marriage is a scam, it's wrong, it's this, it's that, my husband this, my husband that, want to, bitch and moan to you, have their priorities all fucked up, okay? She did not value her health within her marriage. She valued the food. She went to the food for emotional support. She respected the food. She desired the food more than her husband, right? Like, you can see this throughout the movie. And I'm sure we all know women like this who have so much to say about marriage because they have the title of wife, but are so unhappy because the man they're with is not on their level. And on top of that, they're putting all of their emotional stability into the wrong shit, like food. And it can also be noted that maybe because Norbert didn't satisfy Rasputia enough in bed, that she took pleasure from food instead of sex. But what I will say too is that when it comes down to that conversation, that's between you and your spouse and God. And so, therefore, you need to figure out what gets you going for the both of you that's consensual and that you both are willing to experiment with. But in regards to just seeking that pleasure from other things and other people, you really got to examine yourself because that's the whole point. One of the aspects of being married is to take pleasure in one another physically, emotionally, literally, because that's what that person, that's an aspect of your being that that person satisfies, right? Because you're husband and wife. And so when you start exalting other things over your connection with them and even other things that bring you more pleasure than your physical touch with them, that's when you really have to examine yourself. Rasputia also represented Norbit terribly as his wife. So I believe that as a wife, you are a representation of your husband, just like your husband is a representation of you. And so, if you're a vile piece of shit and you're just treating people like shit, you're doing what you want, you're leveraging, blackmailing, putting down other women, putting down other men, just being uh, a bitch. Like, what do you think that says about your husband? These same women, bitch and moan again, they're bitching and moaning 1,000 years about their marriage, but they literally represent their marriage and their husband and his last name terribly because their attitude sucks. And the type of lifestyle they live is not up to par either. And so one could also argue that perhaps, resourcefully, Norbert is beneath Rasputia in regards to a hypogamous marriage. However, one could also say that Rasputia was lucky to even get a Norbit. How about that? And so when you're a woman who is not being accountable, not holding her end of what marriage is and what it is to be a wife, you're even lucky to have the hypogamous marriage you have. Because if you never work on yourself, if you never evolve, if you never actually have self love and self respect, you get what you fucking deserve. And even the thing that you deserve is actually probably too good for you because your mindset is fucked. And the way that you view people and treat people is disgusting because you're insecure, because you don't think you're worth it, because you think this is your best shot at love. And so, what Mother would advise any woman to do that finds herself mirroring Resputia's talking points, mentality in regards to marriage, is to really, really truthfully take a moment, sit down, write what you're unhappy about, answer honestly if you knew that this would be a possibility in saying yes to this man that you're with, that you're very unhappy with your marriage with, right? And take accountability. Admit that I did it because I thought this would be my best shot. And have an honest conversation with that man. And if you both cannot move forward honestly, effectively, and marriage minded together, and creating a new type of marriage between the two of you, leave. That's it. That's all. And finally, what I realized too is Respucia was very, very combative. Like she would hit him, she would threaten him. So she was also domestically abusive. She was someone who would argue with him. I remember that scene when they're in the car and her boobs kept hitting the steering wheel. And he was like, well, maybe you've gotten a little bigger. And she was like, I ain't get no bigger. It rained. And then he lied and said, well, it rained. The car shrinks when it rains. Like basically just lying to her to soothe her so that she doesn't become an extra fucking menace. So my thing is just like the marriage conversation. Again, I'm a single, beautiful, child-free woman who one day knows that well, actually, I know I'm meant to be a wife and will one day be married. But I'm not a married woman. But I don't think I need to be married to say what I see red flags in with Norbert and Rasputia, the movie, and also what I witnessed in my real life. To speak on this, to tell you, please don't make these same mistakes, right? Don't approach marriage like Rasputia, or don't have a marriage like Rasputia. Because in having a marriage like this, you're going to be fucking miserable. My God, you're going to hate your fucking life, bro. Because the man that you're with is not who you're supposed to be with. It's just someone that you said, okay, I'll accept this proposal, or some of you, God rest your souls, actually got on your fucking knees and proposed to him. Because you want the title wife so fucking bad that you didn't want to work on yourself and actually get what were worthy of. You decided to get with what came your way. And so you have nobody else to blame but yourself. And I pray for that poor man because I know you're making his life hell. Because a woman, what's the Bible say about a woman? Like it's better to be on top of the roof than in a house with something type of woman. So like some of y'all, I feel bad for your husbands, even if it's a hypogamous marriage. My God, because you drag him through hell. You drag him through hell. But you're the one who said yes. You're the one who accepted this marriage. Some of you, again, even proposed. So my thing is just like, examine yourself. My Rosalind's, this video was also for you to, again, analyze your marriages and yourself and the mindset you have. Because I realize in Blackistan, there's a lot of toxicity, yes, with baby mama culture and with dating, but also with marriage. That should be like crazy toxic and miserable. And then these same women tell younger women like myself, don't get married, don't do this, don't do that. But some of y'all, it's literally just because you chose what came your way and not what you were actually meant to have or worthy of. You chose what felt safe or what felt like now because you didn't want to wait longer. And I feel sorry for your children in these relationships and these marriages because oh my God, they are the product of two people who shouldn't have been together, and a mother who resents, their father, and their father who most likely is very weak-willed, being together. And I can only imagine. Actually, I can't even only imagine. I lived a little bit of this, except the situation with my loved ones it wasn't hypogamous, it was actually hypergamous, which made it even more insulting because it's like, how dare you complain and bitch and moan when, they elevated you. So, yeah, very interesting. And I might touch on in the future, like the opposite, that I see the ungratefulness, the entitlement, right? But yeah, so with that, mother's gonna say, ciao. And I hope this actually makes you really think about your marriage because God help y'all. Okay, bye.